Less really can be more when it comes to prepping for an in-person market. Today I'm showing you how I made the most of the supplies and products I already had, how I set up my table, and what I learned along the way. I hope this video will give you some ideas of how you can simplify your market prep and avoid at least some of the cost and the chaos. Hi there, I'm Katie of Dandelion Doily. I make miniature handmade embroidered jewelry. My business has been around for about 6 years, and in those early days especially, I did a ton of markets. But in the past few years, I've taken a break, and I've also moved, and I don't have the same supplies that I had back then when I lived in a house and not a one-bedroom apartment. So for this market, I needed to work with what I already had or could easily gather. I want this video to help you feel a little bit more calm and less overwhelmed because you don't have to go all out to have a successful market. I was feeling a bit of pressure though because my shop had basically sold out a few weeks before. This is honestly a great problem to have, but embroidery is a slow craft and I was really worried I wouldn't be able to make enough in time. So to be able to have inventory, I decided to dig into the many embroideries that I had already made when testing and perfecting my kits and patterns. These embroideries are slightly different than the ones I sell on my Etsy, but hopefully an in-person market will give me some good feedback and we'll see if they sell. I decided to wait to package them up to give my customers options. I put all the pendants into shallow boxes, which would be easy to pack up and take with me, and also easy to use as display trays. Customers could look at the many unique pieces close together to compare, find their favorite one, and then decide if they wanted to make it into a necklace or a keychain. In addition to my finished embroidery work, I brought some hand-painted necklaces that had been sitting for months in my shop. They had sold very poorly on Etsy, and I was hoping at a discounted price they would finally find homes. Lastly, I also brought along some embroidery kits, since it was a craft-centric market. I did have to think through selling them because they also have many options to choose from. I decided to prepare by boxing up the items of the kits that stay the same, and then organizing the choices for people to select, and then I would package it up for them. I was hoping at this market to get to share and sell what I love, but also get some feedback, experiment a little, and just see what works. Now that I knew what I was bringing, I could start to play with the display and the design. For this market, I was allowed one table up to 6 feet, but I only have one small folding 4-foot table, so I was determined to make it work. At home, I practiced how I could arrange and decorate my table. The boxes of pendants looked nice and neat, and I had a few pieces on display in their packaging, but something felt missing. I honestly think this could pass for a craft market. But my work is very small, and having it laying flat on the table makes it kind of hard to tell what it is. I also think having so few items makes approaching a booth a little more intimidating. But I looked around and found something perfect. Our shoe rack. Don't worry, I cleaned it before I used it, but I think it really brought an intentional and polished look to the display. It made the space feel more engaging and put my work more at eye level. I think this rack could be disassembled, but I didn't want to have to look forward to an IKEA project right before my market, so I just ended up bringing it as is. I think the wood and the brown boxes help make the branding feel cohesive, and this simple change elevated my display in more than one way. Also, don't underestimate an upside-down basket, box, or drawer. These are easy ways to add height and dimension to your display or help organize, like this actual wooden IKEA drawer I'm using. I wanted my signage to be simple and clear. Instead of pricing every little thing, I wanted to save time and clutter by creating a kind of price menu. I made a list of my items and their prices, and on the other sign, I had all my QR codes for payments. I made some small foldable signs to identify my products, and I also printed out a reference for chain links and QR codes for my Etsy and Instagram for people who wanted to stay in touch. I don't have a big brand sign, which would be really nice, but I included Dandelion Doily in large letters where I could, and of course all of my packaging has it on there too. Speaking of packaging, it was also really important for me to prep my embroidery card holders beforehand, since I wasn't using them in the display, but would need to package up selections in a reasonable amount of time. I also printed out a fresh sheet of thank you stickers. More than my brand name though, for this market, I wanted to make sure people knew what I was selling from afar. So I tried to make some bigger printed signs that I cut out that said tiny embroidery to pique someone's interest. I packed up everything the day before. I'm glad I did because it took a few tries to get everything situated. I wanted the least amount of boxes to carry, so I ended up nesting a lot of smaller boxes inside of bigger ones, which kind of helped me feel organized. Apart from 2 boxes, I had the table and the shelf. The next morning, it took a few trips to load everything up, and I got to the market in time for setup, after walking up the many stairs. I arranged everything just how I practiced. I placed the packing boxes under my table and put my supplies under the rack. It was a good thing I brought tape because I was able to put one of the tiny embroidery signs on the back of my booth, which I found out was facing the entrance. The rest of the day was a bit of a blur, and I didn't get much or any footage of me actually being the vendor, but I had such a lovely time meeting kind and interesting people and sharing my work with them. I mostly stood behind my booth in the space to the side of the rack and presented my work to people with a short, friendly elevator speech and a smile. This speech would get people to look closer, and usually they would be surprised when they realized it was all tiny handmade embroidery. The second day was also just as fun and full as the last day, and I took a lot from this market. People really liked my embroideries and found them very unique. They also seemed to prefer the newer embroideries that aren't the typical ones that I sell on Etsy. They really liked the variety, but it also made it kind of hard to choose. They were my bread and butter at this market though, but more about that later. People also really loved my painted pendants and were amazed they were paintings. I'm so glad I brought them, and it just goes to show you that some items just do better in person. I only ended up selling a few kits. I think finished pieces are more giftable and give a reason to buy immediately. For the amount of prep that I had to do for them, I think I would prefer to mention them as an option from my online shop and not bring them to the next market. I was glad I had QR codes to my Instagram and Etsy. If someone liked my work but didn't exactly want to buy, this was a free and easy way to help them not feel awkward or pressured, but to still support my work. Packaging up pieces for each order did take some extra time, but I found that it worked out well as people decided how to pay. I think if it was a super busy market though, I might need an extra person to help me keep this process running smoothly. Some people thought the chains and keychains cost extra in addition to the pendant, so I might need better signage to show that it's kind of like a Build-A-Bear situation. I was also a little scared when a child would come up without supervision and eat a gooey cookie in one hand and touch my pendants in the other. It never got too bad, but that is kind of a risk I'm taking by having my work so in the open and available. Next time, I would like to bring unfinished work to help customers understand and appreciate my work more. Some people were just very surprised when they found out it was tiny embroidery. I'm also considering maybe bringing a magnifying glass. Make sure to log into all your payment methods and that they're downloaded to your phone before the market, preferably the day before. It was really stressful because I forgot my Square password and I had to figure that out really quickly. Also, as a side note, make sure the payments go through. At one point, Zelle showed 2 payments in my money received, but later I realized the transactions were rejected, so I just lost those payments and there was nothing I could do about it. Make sure to bring snacks. Make friends with the vendors beside you. It's a long day and it makes the day better. All in all, over the 2 days, I think I sold 30 to 40 pieces and made over $1,000. I count this as a success, not just because of the money, but also because of the insights I gained, experiences I've learned from, and the people I met along the way. I maximized what I had and found out that that is enough, at least for now. Let me know if you have any ideas for my booth or any market tips. Thanks so much for watching. Sincerely, Katie of Dandelion Doily.